Tonight on Legislative Review. Parents' rights in education. Plus, taxing the sale of firearms and ammunition. And safe gun storage. From the state capitol, this is Legislative Review. Thank you for watching Legislative Review. I'm Angela Nolasco with today's top discussions in the state legislature.
I feel a sense of urgency as I bring this bill forward today.
On January 21st, Tuesday, the Senate Early Learning and K-12 Education Committee held a public hearing concerning parental rights in education. Senate Bill 5181, sponsored by Democratic Senator Claire Wilson, proposes to amend the Parental Rights Initiative passed last year so it aligns with current state law.
This includes adding all protected classes under non-discrimination laws, revising timelines for notifications, protecting the health privacy of scholars, aligning the definition of health records for consistency, protecting scholar rights that are given to them under existing state laws, and modifying the definition of an official education record to better align with the standard definition that is used by all states.
Senator Wilson said this is a, quote, cleanup bill to eliminate ambiguity in the current language of the law based on questions that arose from school districts during the interim. One of the amendments would allow students to consent to healthcare services without parental notification, a point which Planned Parenthood Alliance advocates testified to support.
Minors can already consent to mental health care and immunizations in Washington. The same goes for reproductive health care, and this is the case in more than half of the states in our nation. While educators work to deliver accurate and honest education, certain people promote disinformation and fear to attack LGBTQ+ youth and limit young people's access to youth and to life-saving care and information. We know the majority of Washingtonians reject these tactics and instead support school and community partnerships built on foundations of trust and placing the well-being of young people as the top priority.
Speaking to oppose that stance, Jean Hill of the Washington State Catholic Conference.
We do oppose the removal of provisions related to medical services being offered or provided to children. Schools may act in loco parentis to parents while students are in their custody, but nothing in that role gives schools the right to act against a parent's superior role as the actual parent of a child. Parents are the people best positioned to make medical decisions for their children. A school has no role to play in non-emergency medical decisions, nor does it have any particular expertise to make those decisions.
The Washington Education Association testified to support the bill.
WA wants to ensure students feel safe in their schools and that their learning needs are met. After the passage of Initiative 2081 last session, we were aware of areas in the legislation that were vague and confusing.
A point which initiative activist Tim Eyman contested.
It is simply maddening to hear the word confusion about such a straightforward initiative. This bill is being pushed not because the initiative is confusing, but because you want the government here and parents down here. And that's not what the voters want in this state. This initiative process is to be respected, and this bill is very disrespectful to people. Parents here, government here.
Should the bill pass, it would take effect 90 days after session adjourns. During the hearing, the committee also heard legislation on gender inclusivity in schools and a bill to prohibit discrimination in schools on the basis of ethnicity, homelessness, neurodivergence, and immigration status.
Good morning. Welcome to House Finance. Today is January 21st. We're going to go ahead and begin.
The House Finance Committee held a public hearing on legislation taxing the sale of firearms and ammunition. The tax is an 11% sales and excise tax, on top of the 10% federal tax that currently exists on the import, production, and sale of pistols and revolvers, and the 11% federal tax on shells and cartridges. House Bill 1386 exempts government and law enforcement from the tax. Profits from the tax will fund agencies and programs supporting the prevention of gun violence, domestic violence, and suicide, as well as victim services. Democratic Representative Milan Tai of Bellevue, one of the bill's sponsors, cited data on mass and school shootings and veteran suicide rates in her plea to the committee to consider the bill.
firearm violence is a public health issue, not just in our state, but in our nation. When we take actions around how do we tax certain products that is harmful in an attempt to reduce the use of those harmful products to our society, especially to our youth. This is not an exception.
Supporters say the programs to be funded by the proposed tax are desperately needed. Opponents argue that it will make citizens less likely to defend themselves, put public safety at risk, and is a violation of the constitutional right to bear arms. Avian Klein of the NRA.
This predatory attack on what is considered a firearm and what can be taxed to the extreme is unacceptable. If this tax is permitted, there is no stopping at 50 or 100% tax on any other constitutional right that is disfavored: the Second Amendment, speech, religion, or any other right.
Mahika Malati, a high school student from Redmond, disagreed.
We can't learn about our constitutional rights in AP Gov if we're not alive. I'm part of a percentage of students who hasn't been killed by an AR-15 at school, but that could too easily change. I'm also one of the many students in Washington who can't just be a friend, but a therapist for my depressed and suicidal classmates. Washington law requires that we go to school, and we're asking for another law to make going to school safer.
Testifying in support, Corinne Brownson of King County Public Health cited the CDC's suicide rates by firearms.
Firearms contribute to hundreds of lost lives, non-fatal injuries, and emotional traumas in Washington each year. The CDC estimates that firearm suicide cost Washington over $6 billion in 2022. Suicide prevention, firearm domestic violence prevention, and victim services are underfunded compared to the need across Washington. In a time of budget difficulties, it makes sense to direct tax revenue from potentially harmful consumer products to work responding to those harms.
In opposition, Seattle resident Teo Morca said taxing the sale of firearms won't fix suicide rates or violent crimes and will only encourage firearm sales in black markets.
Suicide rates remain static regardless of gun laws, indicating that we cannot legislate suicide away. Engaged parenting and robust social and mental health support are much more effective approaches to suicide prevention.
The House Civil Rights and Judiciary Committee also discussed a bill that aims to establish secure storage requirements for firearms in vehicles and homes, and to promote public education on proper firearm storage. Under House Bill 1152, leaving an unattended firearm in a vehicle is prohibited unless unloaded and stored in a locked, opaque container attached to the vehicle and out of view. The vehicle must be locked. The bill does not apply to antique firearms, farm vehicles and firearms, peace officers, the Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife, and lawful hunters. Democratic Representative Beth Dolio, the bill's prime sponsor, said the rate of guns stolen from vehicles has tripled since 2014 nationally, and Washington State is no stranger to it.
When firearms are not stored securely, the risks to our communities, particularly to children, are undeniable. Far too many families are devastated by preventable tragedies, accidental shootings, youth suicides, and crimes committed with stolen guns.
Juliet Scarpa of Moms Demand Action testified in favor of House Bill 1152.
30 million children live in homes with a gun. 4.6 million of them live in homes where that gun is not stored properly. Kids are bringing guns that are easy to access to school. 3/4 of school shooters acquired their firearm from the home of a parent or close relative. Child safety is an adult responsibility. I'm frustrated that my children and community continue to endure a distinctly American problem where their lives are expendable while the gun industry profits from their fears.
Concerned citizen Teddy Chow voiced his opposition to the bill.
This proposed law is impractical for the various types of guns that would need to be locked inside a motor vehicle. Don't let your emotions make bad laws. This is selectively punishing people who want to exercise their Second Amendment rights. This is an immoral law that further victimizes the victims of theft.
To watch the complete hearing, as well as gavel-to-gavel footage of the 2025 legislative session, visit our website at tvw.org. The 2025 legislative session runs for 105 days. It convened January 13th and is scheduled to adjourn on April 27th. Keep watching TVW for more updates. Thank you for joining us.